Hello and welcome to the 11th sequel of the Split Screen Podcast. Alan, let's sing along to the theme song.
I'm just going to do the basic.
Okay, and we stop with that.
Can we not do that ever again?
I don't know. Maybe on the next episode we won't. Maybe we'll have a diverging sequel and we will not hold on to the traditions we have established here tonight.
I feel like I spent a whole year getting accustomed to the sound of my talking voice, and then you threw my singing voice in there and I just didn't know what to do. So.
I like to keep it wild and change things up.
I like to keep it wild, but I don't want to turn people away.
So one of the things I've always noticed is that when you look at film and you look at sequels, and of course I'm going to refer to the great trilogy, the godfather of cinema trilogies, and that's the Toy Story films. And the great thing about the three Toy Story films is that there's a large arc over all three of them. You can sort of say it's about the toys' time with Andy.
Yeah.
But each individual film has a very unique tone to it. The third one is very melancholy. It's very dark at points.
Yeah, it's quite a sad film, really. I think I had a wee greet at the end of that film.
And the first one is very wondrous, about discovery, a lot of nice little things. The second one, they sort of address the commercialism, which is a little sort of self-referential thing as well there. When I think of game sequels, I tend to think more of like the Police Academy films, where there's like 7 Police Academy films, but I think you'd be forgiven for getting 3 confused with 5 and 6 confused with 2.
Jurassic Park might be another one. You know, where the first one was really good, really broke the mold. The second one just added more flying bits and more swimming bits.
They took it to New York, which is a very classic. Crisis 2 took it to New York. Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, took it to New York.
Escape from New York, took it to New York.
Because the first one was Escape to LA. Escape from LA.
Escape from LA, yeah. I hope that was the right way around.
But I think
Home Alone 2, Lost in New York.
And we know the pattern for Grand Theft Auto games goes Liberty City, Vice City, San Andreas. And it looks as though they are repeating that in this generation, where Grand Theft Auto 4 was in Liberty City, GTA 5 is going to be in San Andreas. And I saw the trailer came out, and I remember a friend asked me, like, what do you think of it? And it's like, well, it looks exactly the same as every other Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
Except maybe now there'll be more Latinos, or there'll be more black people in it, or they'll have, a gay character.
I really did not enjoy San Andreas.
No?
I just never got down with the stereotypes.
Yes,
I think it's fine having characters like that in an environment like that, but whenever it's like it's a games company in Scotland making it, it's not quite as acceptable. I don't know if that's a valid argument, but it certainly is some kind of argument.
I think when it's repeated every time, then it's totally valid. Even to when you have Crackdown, which you could say was set in the future, they didn't need to go and resort to again the Latino gang, the Russia gang, the Triad gang, but they did.
I'm just thinking, I've still got Crackdown 2 in the pile of shame.
You did, really?
Yeah, I've got Crackdown 2. I haven't opened it even.
Do you know the reason why they made that game?
Because they wanted to make more money.
They needed to make more money because their studio was about to be shut down.
Ruffian?
Yep. And so they reused large parts of the world, the existing world from Crackdown 1, and just reskinned it.
Oh.
Because there was one of the big complaints with that, is saying, like, well, there's parts of the city which are just exactly the same, and that's because it was exactly the same. And they threw in the zombie thing to try give it a bit of variety.
I think at some point, please remind me that there are too many zombies in games.
We can do a good article on that.
We can do, yeah, I'm sure we could.
We're going to crimp this up.
We're not known for clever infographics, but I'm sure we can manage something.
That's true. Hollywood sequels, Alan.
Hollywood sequels. Hollywood sequels are often more of the same as well. I suppose the obvious one would be something like Transformers 2. I mean, they already wrecked New York, so they had to go to Egypt that time. Transformers 3, do not care. Really don't care. Most films do that as well, but that seems to be what people want. Those big blockbusters, people like watching the sequels to those, and in games, that's what people want as well.
You want more of the same, but more. Bigger, better, more badass.
What I'm going to do is, because I've been cheeky and I've left my iPad turned on, like the Wi-Fi on, I'm just going to look for the UK games charts out of interest here, just to see how many games are sequels. Okay, so here is the GFK chart track. Right, I'm just doing a very quick countdown here. You need to guess how many of the top 20 games are sequels.
And is this all? I guess it doesn't matter what platform it is. Top 20
all
games.
platform.
I mean, I would want to say at least half.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with more than half of them.
Just give me a number.
13.
18.
18 out of 20.
18. The only ones in the top 20 that are not sequels, this is the week ending January the 7th, are Zumba Fitness and Rage.
Wow.
Everything else is a sequel. I'm also including things like Rayman Origins, Super Mario 3D Land, which, to my mind, are sequels. So that is the top 20. Even looking down the top 40, there's another 5 games that aren't sequels.
Wow.
So out of 40, that's 7 are actually not sequels. So that's things like F1 2011, Sims 3, Jesus Christ, Arkham City, Professor Layton 3, WWE 12, Wii Fit Plus, Uncharted 3, Halo Anniversary, Lego Harry Potter Years 5 to 7. So it goes on. Oh, sorry. Kinect Sports is there as well. That's not a sequel.
That's
okay.
True.
That's 8 out of 40.
So, I mean, a lot of this got spurned off because you asked me whether I was going to get Arkham City.
Yes,
and
that's what started this whole podcast genesis, didn't it?
And I said no, because I've already played Arkham Asylum. And that was the same reason why, one of the reasons I wasn't interested in playing Skyrim as such. Why I didn't play a lot of Fallout New Vegas was because I played Fallout 3.
And that's part of the reason why because people had said to me, oh yeah, New Vegas is better than Fallout 3, and that's great and everything, but you're still dragging yourself through the same thing twice, in the same way that I think you played Fallout 3 a couple of times. I didn't. I played it once, and that was quite enough.
I played it many times, but exploring those different avenues. So I feel that even if I went into what I saw when I went into New Vegas, and they would have a quest line, it would be using similar tropes to those that I'd already seen. There's certain things where they would have people's. You could see they were breaking down mentally by the writing that they had would degrade in quality, and grammar and spelling mistakes. And I'd seen that exact same thing being used, and it was only used once, and it was used to great effect in Fallout 3. But I've seen it again, diminishing returns for me.
Fair enough. I mean, Arkham City, I would like to play at some point. The series for me that went from pretty crap to great to really good to I don't care anymore, even though the last ones were good, were Assassin's Creed.
Yes.
So I got Assassin's Creed 1 and 2 in a double pack, staggered through the first one. As you can read online, if you so choose to read, you'll see that I didn't like it that much. I was probably overly kind to it, to be honest. Assassin's Creed 2 was a fantastic game and almost got our coveted 5 stars of meaningless insignificance award.
Yep.
And Assassin's Creed Revelations, was that the third one?
Yeah.
Brotherhood.
Brotherhood.
I can't even remember the names of the games.
Revelationatorianisms.
Yeah, I think it was Assassin's Creed Brotherhood.
Okay.
And it was really good, and I enjoyed it. But to me, it just felt like an extension of 2. Mm-hmm. And then there's Assassin's Creed Revelations, which is just an extension of Brotherhood. So
I think part of the problem
I've played enough Assassin's Creed. Mm-hmm. Don't really like the series. If somebody said here's a free copy of Revelations, I wouldn't refuse it. I just don't really want to play another.
I think part of the problem there as well is that you just get burnt out on a series when it's coming out every year. And it's
Burnout.
Like Burnout. And it's strange that I'm sure you could rush out a sequel every year. Certain games just update yearly. I mean, I'm sure people don't even think of them as sequel when it goes from FIFA 2012 to FIFA 2013.
I think a lot of people just trade in the old version and get the new one, and they have FIFA in the same way you have Microsoft Office or whatever.
Yeah.
Some nutcases will upgrade that every year. Other people recognise that nothing's fundamentally changed. You're still kicking a ball about a field or kicking words about a page, and so you don't actually need the extra functionality, no matter how hard the marketers will try. But FIFA 12 was top of that chart that I looked at.
Really?
Top dog, yeah.
It's also we're just after Christmas, so I imagine any Aunt Cheryl out there will be able to buy their little boy
Aunt
FIFA
Cheryl.
12 and Saints Row 3.
FIFA 12, Battlefield 3, Modern Warfare 3, Just Dance 3, Skyrim. And inexplicably in the top 10 you've also got Need for Speed The Run, which I don't need to play to know is shit. And and Saints Row the Third, which I don't need to play to know that I wouldn't enjoy that. Yeah. So there you go.
So a number of those games were from 2011, and they were the biggest games of 2011. Eurogamer picked up on this.
Yeah, well, Eurogamer, they had a couple of competing articles around the same time where members of their staff seemed to be very undecided on whether 2011 was a really good year for gaming. So, first of all, on the 26th of November, they complained about the number of sequels in 2011, and Craig's going to put on his best, I am quoting website voice for us.
But here's the thing, I've played absolutely all of them before. Name a single game released in 2011 that felt truly new. It's a real struggle.
And then they described it as a vintage year for gaming.
2011 has been a vintage year.
Oh my god, don't do that. Don't do that voice. It's okay, but if you can't actually hear what you're saying.
2011 has been a vintage year. Not necessarily for the same rush of novelty that we saw a decade ago, but for different reasons altogether. And the reasons that I think are just as important as the sharp thrill of the new, even if it is admittedly a less raw excitement that they offer.
And then the one thing that got me was they said that there's this opinion piece called "Bring On the Next Generation," and they said that increased processing power was somehow going to help alleviate the tide of sequels.
Once there's a new console with better hardware, our games will have to start looking better again.
I can't even get through you reading this without laughing at how stupid it is. But continue, sorry.
But they'll also be able to think in more complex ways. And this will encourage developers to imbue their creations with more of that cherished interactive fidelity.
Interactive fidelity?
Yes.
That's just bumf. That doesn't mean anything.
I saw an example of this interactive fidelity online. I was looking around EA's YouTube page, and it was an over-the-shoulder...
Was that a low point in your life?
That was actually quite cool. I was looking at Jeff Green.
Glad you enjoyed it. Sorry.
It was fun. It filled the void.
Oh, God.
And it was on one of the Harry Potter games, and they had all these models marching down this, grey abyss fantastically. And what they were zooming in on was something called Dynamo, which is how they dynamically animate the hair. And that's true. It means that their animators don't need to go in there and animate the hair by hand. They just have the sort of skeletal model, and physics happens at some point, and it looks at the hair bounces, and like the clothes at the end of their capes bounce a little bit, and that was great. And that is a big part of when technology advances. And I was watching, going like, that was some guy's job, was to sort of improve the hair bounce in Harry Potter. And is that really pushing the boundaries that we need to push, or strive to push?
It's certainly not imbuing creations with interactive fidelity, is it? It's not like you're actually going to choose which of Hermione's hairs lobs over her left shoulder and over her right. Here's one for you. Think about Halo 2. Right, which was an Xbox game come out in 2004. It had Xbox Live Online functionality. You could download map packs and a voice chat and a friends list. Halo 3 and the 360. What's the difference? What's fundamentally different about playing that game? Not a lot. You can throw down bubble shields. You can make your own maps. That's something new. But I don't feel like there's anything fundamentally different that couldn't be done on the original Xbox, and if you look at Halo compared to something like a game on the Dreamcast or the PlayStation 1 or 2, that wasn't true, because it's got much more complicated artificial intelligence. I kind of feel like around the end of the Xbox PS2 generation, when you had games like God of War 2, Shadow of the Colossus, Burnout 3, I think that those were kind of the pinnacle of technology. That's when people had as much expertise and freedom to do whatever they wanted, and since then we haven't really been able to push the boundary as much.
One of the things that I imagine must be a nightmare if you're working in games is just that battle with the technology, especially when a new console is released. And we all know that it does take a few years before they really learn how to get the most out of it. There's a sort of weird phrase, it's a polish. I think that tends to be, you get more polish a few years after.
Well, especially with the PS3, they had said that they deliberately made it hard to program for, so that it would take years for developers to make good-looking games, which is, on the face of it, quite a sick thing to do.
It's an odd thing to
make
admit.
people, but it's just typical Sony.
So
next generation doesn't start until we say it does nonsense.
So if I was making a sequel and I had that great idea, but now there's a new audience who have come with this new console. Everyone, the Wii's maybe not the greatest example, but
it's kind of bucked the trend a bit. Yeah.
Let's go for it. That the Wii comes out and it just changes the landscape of gaming forever, and that people buy it. And then if we place this analogy slightly before all the dust collects on top of them, you would go, well, what ideas do we have that works? Well, Halo works. We've got this guy. He jumps around and he shoots people. He's a big, ugly purple dude.
He's a pretty cool guy, eh? He kills monsters and doesn't afraid of anything.
And well, I get maybe if it ain't broke, then don't fix it and just make it look better, and then append the number at the end with the number one.
Well, it's
increment.
Battlefield 3 came out just before Christmas, and that is certainly in the PC. That is like the first of the new generation of titles. It's all like this DirectX 11 marketing jargon and nice big clouds of dust and shiny bloom. And have you played the campaign? Your character's got this permanently dirty face.
No.
It's like this specks of dust all over the camera. I find it most annoying. But is that fundamentally different to Bad Company 2? No, it's not really. In fact, it's very similar to Bad Company 2. It doesn't make it a worse game, but it makes it very difficult for you to keep the enthusiasm going. And this is where you need new games like Assassin's Creed that comes out, or Mirror's Edge, or Dead Space, or even something like Skylanders that is something totally different, or Dance Central and Just Dance Rock Band. Those are the kind of games that stand out for me from the generation because they've been something different, not because they look a lot better. Whereas this whole cherished interactive fidelity thing just sounds like fluff. The games that people are going to be buying, I think if you look at the charts from about 5 years ago, it would still be FIFA and Call of Duty and things like that.
Yeah.
And those games just haven't changed.
And I think the reason why I'm slightly, I am a little more skeptical of a sequel, is that in games the sequel will make more money than the original. So it's in their interest to establish an IP off the bat and find a way of, Brutal Legend was planned as 3 games.
Well,
the first game ends on a story-wise, it ends on a way which would bridge it to the second game. But apparently it was going to be one of these brands. But if you look at film, most sequels do worse than the original.
Is that true?
I feel, there's a good graph that I'll stick up.
Titanic 2 didn't do very well.
There are many examples of sequels absolutely blowing the first away, but by and large,
okay, cool.
the trend is that the sequel will perform less well than the original.
So you're talking like Speed and Speed 2?
I'm talking about American Pie films. I'm talking about things like that.
Or Iron Man 2 probably didn't do as well as the first one, did it? Who knows?
I would, yeah.
I should have done some research before I just started randomly naming film sequels.
Naming all the fantastic blockbuster sequels that have.
We had Fantastic Four too.
Yeah, I'm sure that would do that.
It was bad on every level.
And I want variety, and this is just. And you look at the big developing studios; they're going to do more sequels because that's what's in their interest. They've got their established audience. You can aim for them. Yeah. You can hit something and know something that will sell. So because I want variety, that's what pushes me back into the past to find old games.
Yeah.
And pushes me into mods and iPhone games and things like that.
I think that's where I've been leaning towards iPhone games as well.
Yeah.
But I guess the thing is that like you say, sequels sell better, and that also means that games that are really quite original sell quite badly. And you kind of have to pick them up, in a second-hand shop or something. So I'm thinking of things like Beyond Good and Evil, which is now getting a sequel. And everybody, well, I'll say everybody, but all the people that didn't buy it the first time around are really excited. There's Rayman Origins, is essentially a sequel, but it's also like a reboot of the Rayman franchise. And it hasn't been a 2D Rayman game since 1996. So I consider it it is a new thing.
Yeah.
It's not a 3D one anymore. It's a new thing, and it is brilliant. And it hasn't sold very well at all.
And there's so many games like that have origins in the title, like Tomb Raider Anniversary was one, which was the first game, again remade. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know where it counts when you have these games that are being remade. HD remakes is quite a big thing now. I mean, you said Beyond Good and Evil has an HD remake.
It does.
Is that better than this? Would I rather see that than a sequel?
Well, I got Halo Anniversary for Christmas. And I think I had as much fun with that as I did with Battlefield. My brother and I were playing through it on Legendary, which is a fierce test of anyone's fortitude. And it's still really fun. But then there's no difference between somebody going back and playing that 10 years ago and going, hey, this game looks pretty. Because Halo was a very innovative game. I know people go, no, it wasn't. But it's like, that's why you can't carry all your guns at once anymore, and why you don't have to run around collecting health packs. Yeah. It did an awful lot. Well, the main thing was probably the artificial intelligence. That was the biggest thing that elevated it above everything else that came before. Was that the computer were super smart. But I still think it's a really good classic game. But you can play it on the 360 in an emulator. You don't have to have an HD remake.
No.
I think
that's what I said. A lot of times the HD remakes are ways of bringing it onto systems that you can have had. Yeah. The Monkey Island Special Edition's been a good example of that.
See, they're really good because they're tastefully done, and they're respectful of the source material, but they bring it forward into the modern era. Because you wouldn't want to play Monkey Island in classic mode now. It just wouldn't be as fun. No. Special Edition's a much more enjoyable thing to play.
Yeah, the way you can eliminate pixel hunting by having it show you what highlight what are the interactive elements.
Well, the problem with Monkey Island 2 is that because I wasn't nostalgic for it the first time, I didn't really enjoy it. Really enjoyed the first Monkey Island, but I thought the second, apart from the ending of Monkey Island 2, which is hilarious.
It's so weird.
Yeah, it's pretty surreal. I'll not spoil it for anybody for a change, because I think it's worth not spoiling. But
you get transformed into a kid, and then you're on like this go-kart, and you're like, what? And then it just ends. And it's never addressed in 3. It's addressed as a sight gag.
I thought it was addressed in Curse. I thought it wasn't.
Nah, it's only a sight gag. He's floating in the ocean, and you see the go-kart bobbing behind him, and he's just writing a letter like, wow, that was some adventure. And that's it. They move on, yeah.
Oh, that's disappointing.
Oh, sorry, man. Do you not play 3? You played 3?
No.
It's good.
Perhaps I could do some kind of Let's Play Monkey Island 3.
You could do indeed, and accumulate the same dozen diligent, awesome people like I do with the Blade Runner.
That's nice of you to compliment your fans. If I had any, I'd compliment them too.
You do, man. You do.
Well, one thing to do with game sequels that I guess is a kind of a cheeky way around this is to have the spiritual successor, as they call it.
Yeah. Where BioShock was System Shock's 2 spiritual successor, Child of Eden was Rez's spiritual successor. Dark Souls, most recently, was the spiritual successor to Demon Souls.
Yeah. See, I don't know if I agree that much about Dark Souls being a spiritual successor. I think that's quite cheeky because it is a very, very similar game.
Right.
They could have called it Demon Souls 2, and I think that would have been fine. So, but I mean, I obviously helped make this list with you, and I put that on. But just to say that, I guess cheeky for them to refer to that as such.
Well, I guess for me, what makes it something a spiritual successor rather than a sequel, because I don't understand spiritual successor. Again, it's something that I've never really seen a book that was a spiritual successor to another book.
It's kind of like the same game in a different universe.
And that's it. That's because System Shock 2 has an unreliable narrator. BioShock has an unreliable narrator. You have plasmids in one where you can shoot funky stuff. You have, I can't remember what they call it in System Shock, but you have a similar genetic type upgrade where you can shoot funky stuff as well.
It's been that long since I played it. Child
of Eden and Rez, they're both music-based abstract shooters.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the other ones I would think of would be something like Tool Annihilation, which was a different game in a different universe from the same creator.
Yeah.
And so it very much Supreme Commander, which very much had the same vibe of Total Annihilation, which is hordes of robots fighting each other. And another one would be like Devil May Cry, which is directed by Hideki Kamiya, who then went to Platinum to develop Bayonetta, which is kind of like the rationale behind that was that they'd had all these Devil May Cry characters and they built up a universe, and what they wanted to do was start over again and kind of make the ultimate action game, and they could do whatever they wanted. And so that's why Bayonetta does things like it includes Ninja Gaiden's entire move set with a sword as one of its weapons. It'll include all of Devil May Cry and one particular part of it. So it's quite. I guess they had the freedom to do whatever they wanted, and it's not quite a. Is it a spiritual successor?
Well, I would say, like in that kind of example, that's someone who has this artistic or design flair or some signature design flair, and that's being brought over into other games that they make. So it's not a sequel; it's like something else. In the same way that not Tim Burton, but Tim Schafer from Double Fine has a very distinctive style of game that he makes. But none of his games are ever sequels. I guess Costume Quest had DLC, but I don't know if that specifically counts. But they have a sort of style, and I'd rather see them like work on new projects rather than see Psychonauts 2 or to see Brutal Legend 2.
That's a fair point. I guess,
or Grim Fandango 2.
Maybe that's what a spiritual successor should be, and these games are too close to the original mold, because if you think about it, what you're talking about is you're taking the creative spirit of the development team and you're taking that to a new project and keeping your signature style.
And arguably, like what BioShock managed to achieve in terms of its tone and style was just completely different to System Shock in some ways. But if you look at certain archetypes, if you turned all the textures off, if that works, and you just have wireframes running around.
There's other problems with like royalty rights and things. So EA have the rights to System Shock, whereas BioShock was published by 2K, I think. Yeah. So a famous one was a series called Guilty Gear, which is a 2D fighting game developed by Arc System Works, and it was owned by Sammy. So basically, what happened is they lost the rights to Guilty Gear, so they went off and did another game called Blaze Blue, which is exactly the same thing in terms of the way it works, and it's an incredibly complicated game where you can cancel in and out of a lot of attacks, and there's very high risk maneuvers. It's a very technical game. I can't even get through the tutorials on Blaze Blue. and so I guess that's kind of a spiritual successor, but it's closer to a direct sequel. Of course, BlazBlue has already had 3 sequels, which are BlazBlue Continuum Shift 2, and Continuum Shift Extend.
And then you get like Continuum Shift, Adobe Extend Plus, and that one's got Illustrator and,
you get
Photoshop in it.
Well, you get like Master Collection, which gives you all of the fighters, and then depending if you like, somebody uses projectiles, you can buy BlazBlue Creative Suite Projectile Premium, and that gets you all of the fireballing characters. I think that's they're taking the Adobe model there.
Yeah.
See, Adobe have announced CS6.
Really?
Yeah. Well, this is what they're on an 18-month cycle now, where they do CS5, then 5.5, and then 6.
It's quite soon.
It's too soon, especially whenever you work somewhere that's trying to support these products. Yeah. But luckily, but that's another issue, is that if you have sequels to games being released year in, year out, say you buy FIFA 10, right?
Yep.
Okay. Say you buy FIFA 12 and you buy Battlefield 3. You should be able to play Battlefield 3 for probably several years before EA switch off the servers. With FIFA, you won't be able to do that. You'll get about 2 years before they'll cut it off, because they've already rolled out FIFA 13 and 14. And they're quite good at trimming off all their old servers. So there's kind of an achievement graveyard for things you can't actually collect now.
Yeah, I guess there are certain. I guess it could be motivated by them making sequels. Yeah, there's just certain limitations to how supportable the online aspect of a game could be.
I think there's a limitation as well, in that the games industry can't sustain big innovative games. You can't pump out a Brutal Legend or a Psychonauts all the time. You can't do Mirror's Edge.
That's the
Mirror's Edge
example.
was the one that was
EA had that summer where they completely turned around and they came out with Mirror's Edge and Dead Space, 2 completely unique original ideas. Dead Space you could argue was Resident Evil in space.
Dead Space was pretty good. Mirror's Edge was really
fantastic.
Good.
Mirror's Edge, like nothing else, if you discount Jumpin' Jack Flash, which you should. But if you look commercially, Mirror's Edge did not perform anywhere near as well as Dead Space. Mm-hmm. Which one got the sequel?
Dead Space did, obviously.
Whereas Mirror's Edge, to my mind, had more untapped potential.
This is where innovation has kind of jumped from places like, the PS2 used to have quite a wide variety of content because it was so easy to get published on it, because it's such a big library and a big user base. You could, or the PC was another one where people would do indie games, and now it's jumping to platforms like iOS because the risks are much lower and the audience is absolutely enormous, and there's a very low barrier to sales, and people aren't going to be, people who wouldn't put down 40 quid for Mirror's Edge aren't going to think twice about playing Mirror's Edge for 70p.
And that is good. Like, I'm so happy that there is that variety of iPhone games. It's so bizarre. I was playing Zookeeper, which Alan reviewed a while ago, and it's another match 3 color game. And this is sort of slightly outside of sequels, but you shouldn't think there should be that variety in match 3 color games. But this is like a slightly different take, which is like fun in a kind of different way. And you're able, I guess, to be able to do something like that when it's a smaller budget. But when we lout and we praise Valve and we praise BioWare as being the leaders of the industry, and I want to see what they can do on new things. Valve's next game is Dota 2. What does Dota stand for?
Defense of the Ancients.
I want to see them do something separate. They did Portal, then they did a sequel. They did Left 4 Dead 2. They did a sequel. I kind of like get more excited about the original.
Portal 2 was like a silly sequel, and it worked as a game, but I don't know if it necessarily worked as a sequel to Portal. I think we'd already said that,
No, we said, I think Portal was Portal 2 because people who bought Portal, at least on the Xbox, it was buried away inside the orange box, or it was a download up in the indie games. So in terms of someone walking around on a shelf, there was, I don't think, TV coverage for it. I can't imagine there was much of or any. So Portal 2 was an opportunity for them to then get that market that they missed. They knew that they had something great, but because of the way it was packaged in the orange rug, which is a fantastic deal if you knew about it.
Yeah, but nobody would have bought Portal on its own.
No.
Until they critically acclaimed it.
And that was a big part of it. That's why I think why you really did replay Portal for the first few sections.
Considering it was a game consisting of a sequel and its 2 sequels and a sequel to another game. Yeah. It was quite nice to have Portal there and not Portal 2. So,
but there's certain times I think when someone will deviate with the sequel and it doesn't work out well, or they get criticised and they say like, "Oh, why aren't you making Banjo-Kazooie 3, and that's what people said when Rare made Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, which, when you look on the face of it, is a vehicle-building, puzzle-y type game.
Yeah, it's just totally,
puzzle racing
totally different.
game.
You can
Sandbox
kind of platform a bit, can't you?
You can platform around, but there's no real platforming in it. You can jump around to collect more notes and bits for your car, but then you go back in the car, and that's where you have the game.
Okay.
But there were so many reviews that I read at the time. People in the comments and in the reviews were saying, like, "Well, this isn't Banjo-Kazooie 3," and you're like, "Well, no, of course it's not."
It's not called Banjo-Kazooie 3.
But I guess there's something when you set something in a world, and that's they're using again their IP, their brand, they're establishing and expanding, and you set it, and you have the same characters there in the name.
But Rare just
is there a responsibility?
Rare
to
now do Connect games, don't they? They did
avatar
the avatars, now they do Connect Sports and Connect Sports 2.
But when you put in like a established name into the game, like, should you be using stuff from its past, or should you do something different? Super Mario Brothers 2 was completely different from Mario Brothers 1.
Not in Japan, it wasn't.
It's excluding lost levels.
Well, that was the original Mario Brothers 2, and it was
different.
It was a hastily rushed.
Well, if you looked at it, you couldn't jump on an enemy to kill them.
What?
You had to jump on them and pick them up and then throw them.
Oh, Mario 2, I thought you were
Yes,
talking
Mario 2.
about lost levels.
No, lost levels, you can get past whatever level the winds start coming in.
Oh,
There's wind in that game, but I don't think you can see it, or it's like a couple of white pixels.
Oh,
brutally hard.
Pretty sick then. So, what game do you think has had the most sequels? I know we've done a bit of a tally, so this is really a question to the listeners at home. Or you might not be at home, you might be commuting, I don't know.
Well, I guess, like, saying that where there's certain games, like, okay, you say Banjo-Kazooie's really had maybe 2 sequels, or 2 games in this series, and then there's then there's Nuts and Bolts, it's separate, so, well, I would think Mario would be high up there.
Okay, so Mario has had, I totaled 18 games. That includes Donkey Kong, but not Donkey Kong Jr., because you couldn't play as him.
So we're tracking that through Donkey Kong and the
Mario
Nintendo,
Brothers,
Super Mario World,
Brothers,
64, Sunshine, and all the ones in between up to Galaxy 2, I guess.
Yes,
the last
so
one.
that's not including Mario Kart Party Sports.
Yep.
Mario features in about 200 games in total.
If you count all the karts, all the parties, all the tennis, all the golf, all the spelling,
all the adventures with Sonic. How does Bowser not run the world? Mario spends most of his time enjoying recreational activities.
That's true. He's a keen sportsman. I guess that's maybe he just
hates. You're a keen sportsman.
He hates his day job, and that's how he gets day to day is by his extracurricular.
He's keeping fit. That's why he can triple jump.
I guess so.
So I mean, some of the other Nintendo are quite notorious for it. Zelda, there's 16 Zelda games.
And there is something.
They're all very similar as well.
You get the what's it? The chain link. What's the chain gun
hook
thing?
shot?
The hook shot. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't know the names of the weapons.
I didn't mean to sound annoyed. Like,
no, I wasn't saying that to you.
Shot.
I was saying that to me is like I chose the one thing. I could have said the bow and arrow. So you get the bow and arrow.
Or the bombs.
They're bombs.
Or the bombs.
Or the bombs.
Or the hook shot. Or the new shield and the master sword and the new tunic.
And you kind of know that after you get the chain shot, that you're going to go into a temple where you're probably going to use it. And there's something kind of comforting about that. Something kind of nice. But even people who played Twilight Princess and adored it will tell you it is so much like Ocarina of Time, and it taps that literally in the story, but also in terms of music and locales. It revels in its own history. But it
wallows in its own crapulence.
But so much of it is kind of the same game.
Well, even the music's the same. The overworld themes is the same. And Zelda is now 25 years old, because it's about 1985, I think. So it'll be over 25 years old. So it's been going for quite a while. But I just don't know if I necessarily want to play that game again. I like the Zelda games I really like are Link to the Past, Wind Waker, and Phantom Hourglass for the DS, because they're different. Well, at least they look different, and you get to sail about and have a bit of fun. And I'm not so big a fan of Twilight Princess.
And that's where this whole thing for me is very much a personal thing of, well, I want to see new things, and when I go and look at a sequel, I tend not to see much new. I see a lot of the old. And it's just,
It's like one thing it's different is Sonic. He's been in 24 games. They're all different games. They all look different, but they've all got the same problem.
Sometimes he's a hedgehog. Sometimes he's got a gun.
Yeah, well, that was Shadow the Hedgehog.
Yeah,
but I didn't actually include that in the Hallowed 24. But this is it. It's the same problems every time of him falling off cliffs and things. So the only continuity is Sonic's in it, and he's going to die a lot. That's your continuity in the Sonic series.
And what's the first level of any Sonic game going to be?
Some kind of Green Hill jungle.
And the first level of any Mario game is probably going to be
a greeny, jungly
Mushroom Kingdom.
Mushroomy Kingdom level. That's the same with everything. You get Lava World, Ice World.
And there's certain tropes, I guess, that you can keep going, but yeah.
I'm really glad
it's more about seeing the teams doing something different than rather doing something different with the characters. It's weird. It's kind of like comic books, I guess. And that, Spider-Man's still going.
Yeah,
how many stories are there to tell with him? Or The Simpsons, how many... how nice was it when they started Futurama?
With The Simpsons, I would say there are no more stories to be told, and that's why it's so boring. But yeah, you're right, things like X-Men and Spider-Man and things, they tend to get rebooted, don't they? So they just bring them back again with a new fresh origin story and slightly make them a bit more edgy.
And I think that's what there are many a reboot.
That's what Tomb Raider.
Tomb Raider is.
Tomb Raider's going to do that.
What other reboots have there been recently? Prince of Persia was a sort of reboot.
Yeah, but it was interesting because it got rebooted into Sands of Time, and then he got edgy, and then it was rebooted into a much more whimsical game. And as we know, I'm the only one that liked that game.
And I guess I like that. I think
but
we're sort of, there's different. Wouldn't get too tied up in like what we're referring to them as. Like I like the idea of them changing styles and changing directions with it. That's something new.
So speaking of games that never change their style, here is a big list of all the Street Fighter games.
Can I be Ryu in it? Can I play Ryu?
You can play Ryu in every one of these games. I think. I'm just glossing through them. Yeah, you can. Okay, so I'll just read them out.
And now, to impress your womenfolk, people at pub quizzes, people on buses, people on the street, your family, Alan, take it away.
I'm just reading the tattoos off the inside of my leg. Here we go. Street Fighter, Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition, Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Super Street Fighter 2, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Street Fighter Alpha, Street Fighter Alpha 2, Street Fighter Alpha 3. There's also another Street Fighter Alpha 3 that I've forgotten to put in the list, so we'll ignore that one. Street Fighter EX, Street Fighter EX Plus, Street Fighter EX Plus Alpha, Street Fighter EX 2, Street Fighter EX 3, Street Fighter 3, Street Fighter 3 Double Impact, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, Hyper Street Fighter 2 Anniversary Edition, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo HD Remix, Street Fighter 4, Super Street Fighter 4, and Super Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition. So that comes to 22.
22 Street Fighter games.
But that doesn't include X-Men vs. Street Fighter.